Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Pro-Revenge Story. This just happened. I just finished finals for university and got screwed over. It started in my software engineering class a couple months before today. Projects 3 and 4 were to be group projects. We were assigned a teammate from the class. My teammate, we'll call him Alex, and I decided we'd meet up and work on the project. After discussing what we wanted to do, we found the easiest way would be to work remotely and text each other as we both have very busy schedules. I think working remotely makes the most sense, I told Alex during our initial meeting at the campus cafe. I've got work and 3 other classes. Yeah, definitely, Alex agreed, nodding enthusiastically. I'm swamped too. We can text updates and collaborate online. Flash forward to a week before it's due and Alex has done nothing. I started working on it and was waiting for him to collaborate. He did not. At this point, I said duck it and started working on the project. I got 90% of it done in 3 days, and left the other 10% to him. He kept saying how sorry he was, and that he was busy. I'm really sorry, man, Alex texted. This internship is killing me with deadlines. Look, I get it. I'm busy too, I replied. Just handle this last part, okay? It's the least you can do. Okay, I get it. I'm busy too. You could have put more effort in, but our peer evals will reflect that. Well, he does the last 10%, but not correctly. So I go back in and finish it and submit it, thinking I won't have to deal with him again. Wrong. The next week we had an exam. Exams in this class had an in-class portion and an online coding portion, each worth about 50% of the total exam grade. Online portions were released a few days before and were due before midnight exam day. Well, at 7 p.m. on exam day, I got a text from Alex asking to send an online portion. I ignored it and he kept texting. It was like he felt entitled to getting my exam. Hey, can you send me your online portion? He texted. I'm struggling with it. Come on, help me out. Are you there? Just need to see your approach. I wasn't about to fail this test or give a leech blood, but this really pissed me off. Then we had Project 4 assigned. It was essentially an extension of Project 3, so we would have the same groups. This project was much harder and way more time-consuming. Knowing Alex's work ethic last time, I came up with a plan. I did minimal work on the project up until the week before it was due. Then I ramped it up, but not enough to complete the project. The day before it was due, I got a text from Alex saying, I'm sorry dude, I was super busy with my summer internship application and didn't have time to work on it. Is there anything left to do? Now, we used AWS Cloud9 as our online code editor that works similar to Google Docs and that you can see who is looking at the file and where their cursor is. I had seen his cursor periodically throughout the entire last week. He was checking on how I was doing, but not actually helping, so when he asked, is there anything left to do? My response was no. Nope, all good, I texted back. Don't worry about it. He apologized profusely. He just texted sorry, and I immediately emailed the professor explaining the situation, then proceeded to finish the project. This a-hole was going down. Professor Zhang, I wrote, I wanted to let you know about the division of labor on Project 4. While the submission will show both Alex and me as contributors, I've completed nearly all the work while my partner has contributed nothing substantial. A couple hours later, I got an email back from my professor. Just as I thought, Alex had submitted the incomplete code, each partner submitted separately, as his own. My prof was very understanding and replied with this. The submission Alex put up was not fully featured or particularly well working, so he did not receive much in the way of points. I was unaware who did what, though, and as it seems to be your work, his grade will reflect that. His failures are his own. Justice served, Mother Ducker. I got another text from Alex today, asking me what I got on the project. Hey, what'd you end up getting on Project 4? He asked. Telling him that I got an A was the most satisfying thing ever. Got an A, I replied simply. Nice. Same team effort pays off, he responded. I just laughed and put my phone away. Some people never learn. Update. I have not heard back from him since that exchange, but when if I do, I'll post it here. Update 2. Since there's a lot of questions on what I used to code, it's called AWS Cloud9. It's a cloud-based IDE with an Ubuntu VM environment, still no word from Alex. The next one is an entitled people story. Living in a quiet neighborhood at the edge of town had always been peaceful until the new HOA decided my property was their business. My house sits on a corner lot with a long driveway that connects to a side street. For years, it was just my private entrance. Nothing special, just a convenient way to access my garage without going around the block. About 3 years ago, developers built a small community of townhouses behind my property. The main entrance to their complex was on the opposite side from my house, which meant residents had to drive around the block to get to the main road. Not a huge inconvenience, maybe an extra minute of driving, but apparently that was too much for some people. I didn't think much about the new development until I noticed tire tracks cutting across the edge of my lawn. Someone was using my driveway as a shortcut to the main road. At first it was just occasional. Maybe once a week I'd see fresh tracks. Then it became daily, with multiple cars zooming through. "This has got to stop," I told my wife one evening after nearly getting hit while taking out the trash. "Someone's going to get hurt." The next weekend, I installed a simple metal gate across my driveway. Nothing fancy, just a standard swing gate with a combination lock. Problem solved, I thought. 3 days later, there was a knock at my door. A woman in her 50s with a rigid smile introduced herself as Diane, the president of the new Oak Ridge Community HOA. "We need to discuss your gate," she said without any pleasantries. "What about it?" I asked, already feeling defensive. "It's blocking an access road that our residents have been using. We need you to remove it immediately." I blinked, genuinely confused. "That's my driveway, not an access road." "Well, it's been functioning as one, and our residents are very inconvenienced by having to go all the way around now. I'm sorry, but people driving through my property is a safety hazard. My kids play in the yard, and I nearly got hit last week by someone speeding through." Her smile never reached her eyes. "I understand your concern, but the HOA board has determined that having access through this route is beneficial to our community. We'll need that gate removed by the end of the week." "No," I said flatly. "This is my property. Your HOA has no authority here." Her smile vanished completely. "I don't think you understand. The HOA bylaws clearly state—" "I'm not a member of your HOA," I interrupted. "Your bylaws don't apply to me or my property. You'll be hearing from us," she said, turning to leave. "This isn't over. I thought that would be the end of it, but I underestimated Diane's determination." The next day, I received an official-looking letter from the Oak Ridge Community Homeowners Association demanding removal of the unauthorized obstruction within 48 hours, or I would face a $100 daily fine. I laughed and tossed it in the trash. They couldn't find me. I wasn't a member of their HOA. My house predated their development by 20 years. 2 days later, I came home from work to find my gate open, the lock cut. A steady stream of cars was cutting through my property again. I was furious. I closed the gate, went to the hardware store, and returned with a heavy-duty chain and padlock. This time, I set up a security camera pointing at the gate. The next morning, my camera caught Diane herself attempting to cut the new lock at 6:30 a.m. She wasn't successful with the heavier chain, but damaged my property in the attempt. I called the police and filed a report for vandalism and trespassing. The responding officer seemed tired of HOA disputes, but took the report seriously when I showed him the video. "Sir, I recommend getting a formal cease and desist letter from an attorney," he advised. "Make it clear they have no right to access your property." I took his advice and contacted a lawyer the next day. She was familiar with HOA overreach and drafted a strongly worded letter explaining that 1. My property was not part of their HOA, 2. Their members had no easement or right-of-way through my property, and 3. Any further attempts to damage my gate or trespass would result in legal action. The letter must have struck a nerve because 2 days later I received a response, not from Diane, but from the HOA's attorney. It claimed that my driveway had become a prescriptive easement because people had been using it without objection for the past year. My lawyer laughed when I forwarded it to her. "That's not how prescriptive easements work," she explained. "In this state, it requires continuous use for 20 years, not one, and you've clearly objected by installing a gate." She drafted another letter correcting their misunderstanding of the law and reiterating that trespassing would not be tolerated. A week passed without incident. Then came another knock at my door. This time it wasn't just Diane, but 3 other HOA board members. "We're willing to make you an offer," Diane said, her voice artificially sweet. "The HOA will pay for your driveway maintenance for the next 5 years if you'll remove the gate." "No," I said firmly. "This isn't about money, it's about safety and privacy. My property isn't a public thoroughfare." "But surely we can reach some compromise," one of the other board members said. "Maybe limited hours of access?" "No. My property, my rules. And right now, the rule is no trespassing." I started to close the door. "You're making a big mistake," Diane hissed, dropping the fake pleasantness. "We can make things very difficult for you." I reopened the door fully. "Are you threatening me? Because I have cameras recording this conversation, and I'd be happy to show the police if needed." They left without another word, but I knew this wasn't over. The next day, I received a notice from the city about a complaint regarding an unauthorized structure on my property, my gate. I had to take time off work to go to the city offices and prove I had the right to install a gate on my own property. Fortunately, the city clerk was understanding and confirmed no permits were needed for a simple gate. The harassment continued. Anonymous complaints to the city about overgrown grass, it wasn't. Improper trash disposal, also false. And even noise violations. We're the quietest house on the block. Each complaint required me to defend myself to various city departments. The final straw came when I found a notice taped to my front door stating that the HOA would be holding a vote to incorporate my property into their association at their next meeting. They can't do that, my lawyer assured me when I called her in a panic. Your property can't be forcibly added to an HOA without your consent. Then why are they saying this? I asked. Because they're hoping you don't know your rights and will just give in. It's a common intimidation tactic. We decided it was time to go on the offensive. My lawyer filed for a temporary restraining order against the HOA and its board members, citing the pattern of harassment, vandalism, and attempts to deprive me of my property rights. The judge granted the TRO, which was delivered to each board member personally. The look on Diane's face when she was served at her workplace, I heard from a neighbor who witnessed it, was apparently priceless. We also filed a civil lawsuit for the damage to my gate, harassment, and emotional distress. The evidence was overwhelming. My security footage, the series of frivolous complaints, the threatening statements, and the absurd attempt to forcibly incorporate my property. 2 days before our court date, I received a call from a different attorney. The HOA had hired new representation. He wanted to discuss a settlement. My clients are prepared to offer $5,000 to cover your legal expenses and any damages, he said. That's not enough, I replied. I want a signed agreement acknowledging that my property is not and will never be part of their HOA and a guarantee that they'll stop all harassment. I'm sure we can work something out, he said, sounding relieved that I was willing to negotiate. The final settlement included $7,500 for damages and legal fees, a formal acknowledgement that my property was outside their jurisdiction, and a provision that any HOA board member who trespassed on my property would personally face a $1,000 penalty payable directly to me. The best part? Diane was forced to resign from the HOA board as part of the settlement. Apparently, the other homeowners weren't happy when they discovered her actions might cost them higher HOA fees to cover the settlement. I used part of the money to install an even better gate, this one with an electric opener so I wouldn't even need to get out of my car, and improved security cameras. The rest went into a college fund for my kids. These days, the neighborhood is peaceful again. The new HOA board keeps to themselves and nobody drives through my property. Sometimes I see cars slow down as they approach my driveway, then continue around the block as they should have done all along. Last month, I heard Diane put her townhouse up for sale. I can't say I'm sorry to see her go. As for me, I'm enjoying my quiet corner lot and the knowledge that I stood up for what was right, even against an HOA that thought they could bully me into submission. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I'm 24, living in my first place on my own. I'd rented a townhouse. This was back in the late 80s, even when poor people could rent entire houses, and was putting myself through college. Not a lot of money to spare, but I was getting by. The townhouse was not detached, and I had 2 neighbors whose homes were directly attached to my own. I got along fine with my southernmost neighbor, aka we said hi when we saw each other, and that was about it. But the other neighbor, he had a chip on his shoulder. Generally rude if we bumped into each other, I'd say hi or good morning. He'd ignore me, scowl, turn away, etc. Whatever, no big deal. I just took it in stride. Being a struggling college student, I didn't have a lot of money for non-essentials. Most of the people in the neighborhood poured weed killers on their lawns every spring. I didn't do this for several reasons. Most important, I think it's a shame to poison the local water table, and while I love a nice lawn, I don't think you have to cater to grass. I prefer a more natural look. Back then, that meant regular grass, but with some crabgrass and dandelions. One day, Bob starts berating me over my dandelions. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. Don't you have any self-respect? You bring down the tone of the neighborhood. Every time he'd see me, he'd tell me I need to pour poison on my lawn, which I explained I couldn't afford and didn't want to do. At first I was polite as I wanted to be on good terms with my neighbors, but Bob started getting angrier and more unreasonable, started calling me poor white trash. One day I'm coming home, parking in my driveway with some friends from school in my car. As we're getting out, Bob comes outside and shouts at the top of his lungs, "Get rid of those ducking dandelions!" He looks over and now spots my friends getting out of the car, and he's clearly embarrassed, but he doubled down and started talking directly to my friends. Did you know your friend is an embarrassment to the neighborhood? How's it feel to be friends with white trash? I had just about had enough of his anger by then, and I snapped back, told him to duck off and mind his own business. Several days later, I get a knock on my front door. Open up the door, and it's a bylaw enforcement officer. Says he's responding to complaints of noxious weeds in my backyard and asks to come take a look for himself. Being a middle unit, the only access to my backyard was through the house. I invite him in, offer him a drink of, which he gratefully accepts, hot day, and take him through to the backyard. Lots of lovely white and yellow dandelions peppered over the yard. He takes one look and gives a deep sigh. There were no noxious weeds, which I knew full well, as I had long ago taken the precaution of checking with the city to see what was and what was not acceptable in the weed department, and I knew I was very comfortably, within compliance. The bylaw cop apologized for wasting my time, said my yard was nowhere near a problem. He left and went next door to chastise my neighbor for wasting his time. I stood at my front door and listened. It was glorious listening to Bob sputtering and angry, trying to defend himself and vilify me, all to no avail. My wife and I can't even sit out and enjoy our backyard because of all those stupid dandelions. Bylaw cop told him to stop harassing his neighbors and left. But listening in gave me an idea. I knew Bob liked to sit out on his back deck in the afternoons, so I waited. As soon as I spotted him out there, I walked out into my backyard, ignoring Bob as I gathered up a nice bouquet of white-top dandelions, seeds ready to disperse to the wind. We had a 4-foot-high chain-link fence between our properties, so the view between yards was pretty much unobstructed. I stood at the fence, locked eyes with Bob, and started blowing thousands of dandelion seeds into his yard. The wind was at my back, so the seeds were traveling quite far into his yard. He grew red-faced and started yelling at me. "What's the matter, Bob? I'm just doing what you asked and getting rid of my dandelions." He yelled more, and I just ignored him. After depositing several dandelions worth of seeds, he went back inside. From that day forward, for the next several weeks, every single time I saw him out on his deck, I'd go out and send more dandelion seeds into his yard. Eventually, dandelion flowering season ended. I wanted to think that Bob learned a lesson about bullying, but he didn't. I'll post some of his other bullying attempts at some other time. The next one is an entitled people story. Hello, everyone. Like many of you, I have read these stories with delight and a healthy dose of skepticism, because surely people like this can't really exist? But oh boy, was I wrong. Because apparently the global care and distribution system decided that it was my turn to encounter these wonderful specimens in the wild. This story has the following cast. Me, 35M, Woman 1, Woman 2, and Woman 3. Henceforth know as Dumb, Dumber, Dumbest. The setting is ever windy Copenhagen, and it took place a day ago. My migraine-exhausted self had managed to drag me down to the nearest corner shop, because remember kids, when you're sick, you get to spoil yourselves. I'm almost at the shop, when a car parks on the street next to me. Out comes Dumb, Dumber, and Dumbest. All of them women that looked like they were in the early 20s, and enough makeup to make a drag queen jealous. But Dumber doesn't only get out of the car. No. She gets out and then proceeds to dump her bag of half-eaten fries on the ground. Now perhaps I should just have kept my mouth shut, but I'm sick and tired of people using public spaces as their personal garbage dump. It cost money to clean up. Money that could have been used for homelessness, elder care, or hospitals. So I tell her, you dropped something. No reaction, just completely ignoring me and the trash she just dumped on the ground. Same goes for Dumb and Dumbest. At this point, my Nordic uncomfortableness with speaking to strangers takes over, so I give up and walk to the corner shop. While I pay for my candy, I see the holy trinity of entitlement entering the same shop. Now this is where I definitely should have just walked away. But what can I say? Few things are more annoying than people who think the rest of the world exists to clean up after them. So while they were in the shop, I walked to their car, take the gross half-eaten bag of fries, and dump it on their car. Because clearly these people only understand the concept of cleaning up when it applies to their own thing. I then start walking home, and at this point I'm dead tired, my head is aching, and my nervous system is definitely not happy. I then notice a car slowing down near me. Oh, hurrah, it's the same girls. Lucky me. And I kid you not, Dumbest actually rolled down her window and beckons at me with a finger. This absolute waste of space is seriously doing the whole entitled customer summoning a lowly servant routine. Now things are a bit blurry from this point. I cannot remember the whole conversation line for line, so here is my best attempt. Dummists start out with a tirade of, if I have a problem with them littering, I should just pick up their trash and throw it out. I mean, who thinks like that? Of course I am having none of her nonsense. So I tell her exactly what I think of entitled people like them. Probably quite rudely, not letting this sorry excuse for a human talk over me. At this point, Dumb, who was sitting in the back seat, takes out her phone out and starts filming me. Here I am rather proud at how I reacted in a stressful situation. I looked at the camera and said something along the lines of, "Hey everyone, what is happening right now is that these 3 girls apparently think the world is their garbage dump, and the rest of us apparently only exist just to clean up after them." Dumb have that oh look and takes her phone down. I'm guessing she realized that her little video plan would backfire spectacular if she kept recording me telling the truth. Now back to Dumbest. She spends a few seconds doing a great impression of a goldfish who's clearly been viciously assaulted by a mad makeup artist. Her plan was clearly giving me a lecture on oh so graciously letting me pick up their trash while filming me. But since I so very rudely had sabotaged that, she reached for insults. Why was I shaking? I was so tired. Why did I have so gross earrings? I have stretches. It was pathetic kindergarten insults, and I told her so, and added that if that was her best attempt, then this conversation were over. Oh, and of course to effing clean up after themselves. I then turned away from the car, which turned out to be a good idea, because then the suddenly flying plastic bottle hit my shoulder instead of my eyes. Now I should of course just have called the police at this point. But I was in fight mode, so I picked up the bottle and threw it back. It missed the open car window, which was probably good, but it did hit the car, which is probably also not good. But oh, so satisfying. They then speeded up and drove away while laughing. I was pretty shaken at the object nearly missing my eyes, but some lovely bystanders came over and helped me calm down. So what's the morale, kids? Don't do what I did. But if you end up doing the same, then never feel bad. People like this are empty humans who only have room inside for themselves. They only understand consequences. Oh, and to any fellow Danes, Halli Halloj. If you stumble across a video of someone with a blue cap in car window, please DM me. The police would very much like to identify that lovely bottle-throwing trio. The next one is an entitled parent story. For context purposes, at the time I was 8. I was a very smart yet dumb child. ADHD is wacky. This happened at a restaurant that my private school used for spirit nights or going away parties for staff, so I was familiar with the playground out back. One day I was there with another friend and his family. We eventually split up, and I wandered over to an area with tires in the ground. However, some of these tires were loose, so you could just roll them around. Being the ball of energy I was, just pushed it around and chased it. At some point, entitled kid EK took the tire from me saying it was his turn. I didn't really care and just moved on to something else, most likely playing in the hollow school bus they had. The bus, as I remember, had a slide out one of the windows and monkey bars out the back. After a bit, I noticed EK had abandoned the tire, so again I went back to play with it. Same thing happens where EK took it from me again and I just didn't care. Once again, the tire was abandoned and I wandered over to it, but this time EK noticed what I was doing and started chasing me. At the time, I was laughing because I didn't realize what was going on. After I got into the bus and saw his face, I got scared. He got me into the back corner of the bus and would not let me leave. I was terrified. I didn't know much, but I knew that if I didn't do something, I could get hurt, or worse. So I shoved him away and attempted to make a quick escape down the window slide. Before I could even get halfway down, a mom grabs B by the collar of my shirt and started yelling at me. EP, did you just shove my kid? Are you crazy? Whose kid is this? Now I was not a big kid in the slightest. I was, and still am, scrawny. My shoulders were pointy, and if I had my shirt off, you could always see my hips and rib cage. I later found out that I was built similar to my dad when he was younger. Another parent, who had beer in his hands, either drunk or just loud, started shouting along with her. "He is not my kid! Whose child is this?" At this point, I'd been let go, not before EP plopped me back on the slide and shouted in my face, and stormed off with the other parent to find my mom. She was inside ordering our food and getting a small drink for herself. My friend's mom was sitting outside and quickly retrieved me. I was blubbering and sobbing. I was scared out of my mind. My mom came out as the parents talked to her and demanded her to punish me for beating up her child. My mom glimpsed one look at me before raging at both parents, while my friend's mom tried consoling me with promises of candy. Normally that would work, but I was beyond that point. My mom then came over to me and swooped me up, talked a bit with my friend's mom, then left with me. I was shook from that experience. I think my mom was too. We didn't go back there for a very long time, probably until I was just getting out of middle school. I remember walking out back and just standing there and observing. The bus and tires were gone, replaced by 2 little play places. I stayed close to my mom while we were there. I'm 18 now and have talked about it with my mom. I mentioned to her at some point EP grabbing me, and my mom told me she would have decked her right there if she knew that. I'm thankful she didn't. I've seen my mom get scary before, so I know that women would have been sent to the hospital, but still wouldn't have minded it too much. Anyway, thank you